Hi friends, I know that the braided essay, just the structuring of it can be confusing. You're sort of like, I watched your other video, Jocelyn, but I don't quite understand how do I put it together onto the page. So I have different strands of different stories that are somehow related to each other, like thematically. And in putting these strands together and against each other, each story sort of gets illuminated by the others. Well, that sounds well and good, right? But sort of like, how do I actually do it on the page? So I have two examples to quickly show you from students in past semesters. And in both cases, the students opted to kind of take a more like, they didn't get complicated. They didn't decide to do 3 or 4 strands. Personally, I'd say my favorite braided essay format is with 3 strands because that is really what a braid is, right? But let's say you're sort of like, I'm just figuring this out. I'm going to do 2 strands. Basically, you could write the entire first story. And then you also could write the entire second story. Once you have them both written, you could then just take paragraphs or chunks of each one and you alternate them. So you just go, you might have a couple documents open and you take chunks. But what we have here is an example of a student who he did 2 strands in his braided essay. And 1 strand is about a family trip to, guess what, the Grand Canyon. And then what he decided to do for his second strand is to take factual information about the Grand Canyon. So we sort of are learning about the family trip. At the same time, we're also learning about the Grand Canyon itself. So this is a sort of very literal kind of braided essay where the 2 strands are clearly related. Many times in a braided essay, the readers have to go, how are these things related? Oh, they're all about grief, some common theme. So what we're seeing on the screen right now, Natural Majesty, I just want you to look like just visually at how this is laid out. We have this first kind of chunk of text, this first paragraph explaining the family trip. Please notice this really important thing here, these 3 sort of asterisks. I will call them a glyph, they're sort of a visual symbol for readers to give a clue of now I'm switching strands, I'm switching threads. So if you look at, after that, you can see, oh, the next chunk is basically some factual information about the history of the Grand Canyon. The next one after the next glyph is more about the family trip. And so then you can see how then we have over on the next page, we've got a glyph. Then we go back to more information about the Grand Canyon. Then we have the symbol, the glyph. Then we go more into the family trip, a glyph, more into the Grand Canyon. So if you look at this overall paper, you can go, oh, so it just goes family trip, Grand Canyon, family trip, Grand Canyon, family trip, Grand Canyon, family trip, Grand Canyon. And in a way, that's easy. Like there's a certain elegance to that structure. So you can see that mentally. Let me show you one other one. So here we have a student who double-spaced her essay. And also her segments, her strands, she has 2 strands, but they are like longer storytelling. So it's not just kind of like neat, tight little paragraph, next little paragraph. In fact, each section is multiple paragraphs, which is great. So this is a story where she toggles between the story of her first kiss. So this whole section here is her first kiss, and it goes like onto the second page. That's just our first bit of the first strand. Then you'll see we have the 3 asterisks, the glyph. To be honest, if there's a different symbol that you prefer, by the way, some people love a fleur-de-lis. So if you want to put in a different symbol, great. But it's such a helpful visual cue for readers to know, oh, we're switching. So then for her second strand, she's got journaling. So she has journal entry 419. And then she's writing in this one about like loss and grief within her family. And how she felt sort of having to go to like this funeral and grieve for this family member who passed. So we see again, multiple paragraphs. Okay. And then what we see is the glyph. And we return now to that evening of her first kiss. So we've got kind of like a family grief story and then an excitement about the first kiss kind of thing. And so on the next page, yep, we've got the just kiss me already kind of thing. So we're getting into that. Then we have the glyph and she returns to the journaling, journal entry 419 again. And she's writing more about this kind of like this loss of things. How do you act when you have to go, grieve someone you're not really feeling grief for? But you're kind of thinking all throughout, like, how are these 2 things related? But she brings it home at the end. So we kind of get to the end and, she was really like, hitting on it here. Stressing over things that don't even matter is just wasting the little time I have on this planet. I need to remember that life is short and I need to make the most of it. Life is important and special. Life is meant to be lived in the moment to the fullest because life is precious, like a first kiss. So basically she's bringing her musings about grief and loss together with this idea of like, celebrate every tiny moment because everything is special. So I hope that seeing these two papers kind of shows you what we're talking about. And I would bet with this student that she wrote out in its entirety, she first wrote out the first kiss story. In its entirety, she wrote out the journals. Once she had the two sort of documents of the two stories, she then took chunks of each and she used the little asterisks to separate them. Okay, enough talking. I can't wait to read your paper.